Who do you think's going to take on the war today? I don't know, Saracen. I'm not sure. Oh, sorry. Hi guys, and welcome back to the top 100 UK game shows of all time. Make yourselves comfortable because we're going to be going through 10 more of the best game shows ever. My number 80 to my number 71. Now, I can tell you today is going to be a little bit of a bloodbath, as some of the biggest game shows in UK history go down the plug hole. What will they be? Let's get on with it. Here's my number 80 to my number 71. So, on my last list I had Funhouse, but I think there's one Gungie game show better. Now, my choice might surprise you, but it lands at number 80.
To run the risk, and it's a bit of a special one because we've had some great news, and I believe in credit where credit is due, because you know there's lots of people going at the musical. Right. Pete is no exception. I'm just so happy for you. It's the musical. Tell me what are you going to be doing? Cats. Cats. So what are you going to play? Mr. McCavity, Mystery Cat? No. Oh, Mr. Mistopheles, he's got to be? No. So what are you playing? A litter tray. Oh yeah, I'll talk to you later anyway.
So my number 80 is Run the Risk. I sort of feel like this game show is the culmination of all those sort of kids Gungie game shows that came before it. It's kind of got the best elements of Double Dare. It's got some really good elements from Funhouse, Get Your Own Back. And what I like about this show is it's just so well made. The music and the sound effects in this game show are really, really amazing. To me, they sort of make it. I love that theme song. It's really sort of gets you pumped up to watch this show. Shane Ritchie's a great host. You kind of can't have a good Gungie game show without Peter Simon, and he's fantastic in this and getting involved. They add one thing to the show which really sort of makes all the games that much more epic and fun, and it's just like this revolving stage that sits in the middle.
Lee's holding on, really trying to force himself, but really they've got two back, and Lee's down, and they're looking now to get the third one. Second on the clock, 25, and he's grounded. He's actually grounded Tom. They're three down and they're looking for a fourth. Lee's got them, and Lee really trying to get there. It looks like Sarah's having a real battle. It's all go. Get down, looking for a fourth place. He's back.
And just makes all the games much more dangerous, much more dynamic, people slipping all over the place. I just think this show's really well made. I just love like the end game where they sort of have this race, and like basically you're building up a head start to sort of take on that race. I think that's a really clever idea, and it's really exciting to watch. This is my favourite Gungie game show. I just think it's got all the elements you would want. It's a bit dangerous, it's exciting, the hosting's really good, the music's exciting. This is just a great show, and that's why Run the Risk is my number 80. So my number 79 game show couldn't be more different from anything else on my list, but I just think it's so brilliant and it has to be here. I want you to try and sort of guess what it might be, but I don't think you're ever going to guess what it is. Here is my number 79. So my number 79 is the absolutely charming The Shiny Show. This was CBBC in the mornings. It's a preschool quiz. Such a good idea. But it being a good idea is not why it's on the list. It's the fact it's executed so well. So in this show you've got three puppets. You've got Dogsby, you've got Mucker the monkey, and you've got Tiggs. They've all got really annoying voices, but somehow aren't that annoying when you're actually watching it. And basically, one of them's the host, and they do a series of sort of videos, like educational videos, and basically the other two answer questions on them, and when they get the answers right, they win shinies. That's literally all there is to it. Other than that, it's just sort of a preschool show, but it's kind of like a Hoobs, if you remember the Hoobs, but for quiz. And I just think that's a wonderful idea, and it's sort of executed almost that well as well. There's this one element I absolutely love about it, in that it's got this kind of camaraderie about it, in that they choose every episode a different host. So one episode Dogsby might be the host, and then another one Mucker might be the host, and that sort of really changes the dynamic because they're such different characters. I love that idea of introducing that togetherness of having a quiz to young people, and I love the thought that there's people out there right now that love quiz shows right now because they watched The Shiny Show, and that's why The Shiny Show is my number 79. So my number 78 is unusual because it's a game show that already shares a name with another game show that's already been on my list, but this game show is less famous than the game show with the other name that's already on my list. You'll see. Here's number 78.
Here are 5 claims. I can see with my fingers. I know which holiday destination you're thinking of. I can beat the roulette wheel. Just by staring at you, I can tell what you've just read. And I even know what you've got in your pockets right now. In my world, only 2 of those claims are impossible. With £40,000 at stake, could you work out which is which?
Philip Escoffi presents a brand new kind of game show, Impossible, 10 o'clock Thursday on Channel 5.
So yes, my number 78 is Channel 5's Impossible. This was hosted so well by Philip Escoffi, who's like a mentalist, a magician, and this was billed as like the first magic game show. Basically how it works is a couple comes into a sort of nice bar setting, and they're hosted by Philip as he goes through a series of sort of magical stunts. He proposes something, for instance, I'm going to spin this roulette wheel, 3 balls are going to bounce around, and I'm going to be able to predict what they are under these conditions, and then they have to decide whether that's impossible or not. To sort of verify that this is the case, Philip Escoffi sort of hands an envelope to the production team of whether he believes it is impossible or possible under these conditions. So basically the money raises up as each stunt goes past, as they sort of decide whether they're impossible or possible. It's obviously very different from the other game shows on my list, but I found it really watchable. It's sort of like a Darren Brown but for game show. It all leads up to this moment at the end of the show where basically the money is put in one of 2 boxes, and basically it's a game of misdirection. So you know, Philip will say, oh, don't go for that box, it's definitely not in that box, and do certain things to misdirect them, and eventually they basically lose the money. Which is a little bit unsatisfying, but the journey they had to get to that point was really interesting. I think it's a really unique take on a game show, but I ended up watching all of these, and that's why I like it so much, because it kept me coming back, and that's why Impossible, the less famous Impossible, is my number 78. Now, spoiler alert guys, Countdown is not on my list. I know it's a massive game show, I know, but instead I've got the word game show that I always preferred at number 77. So my number 77 is Catchword with Paul Coyer. I used to watch this quite a lot. It's just got a really interesting sort of selection of word games, and I always preferred that selection of word games to Countdown. Not that I'm saying Countdown is a bad show, it's a very good show, it's just not necessarily my cup of tea all the time. Catchword just had a really good selection of games for me. There's this game where there's anagrams and they have to work out what they are. That's just kind of fun. There's also this game where they've got a grid of like a sort of tic-tac-toe grid, and in turn each have to choose one row, so basically there's letters in them, and they have to come up with a word that includes those 3 letters in that order. They also do the game as a solo game, so for instance if they're sort of presented with the letters DPS, they could say Diplodocus, and the idea is they're trying to make the longest word possible. So this show was really famous because the number of times people would use anti-disestablishmentarianism and feel very clever about themselves sort of was all the time. This game show ran for quite a long time, and I just preferred the sort of variety of games this game show had. Do you know what? You know what? Let's prove this to you, right? Let's all just sit back and relax and watch a little bit of Catchword. How about that? We'll all sit back and then you'll see how brilliant it is. So here it goes. Here's a little bit of Catchword for you. Anyway, that was my number 77 Catchword. Get your paper bags out, game show fans, because my number 76 is another controversial choice. A game show often called bad, that I can't help but like. I've tried not to like it. I just like it. Here it is.
Welcome to Raise the Roof, the show that opens the door to television's biggest ever prize. And you're playing for the ultimate prize, this townhouse in Spain. And here's the man with the key to the door, Bob Holness.
Guys, I know, but my number 76 is Raise the Roof. I think this is a really interesting historic piece of UK game show. Basically, this was the first game show to give away a house. It was an absolutely enormous prize on TV. But at the same time as this show was launched, there was a big newspaper article about how badly the contestants were treated on the show, and I think that really poleaxed the show. I also think this game show suffers because the questions are just so easy, to the extent that it's hard to get that excited about the people who win the show. But all that said, there's so much I like about this show, and I constantly go back and look at the show because I just love the way it looks, the way it feels, the sort of epicness of it. I really love the way this endgame looks. I'll show it to you now. Basically, you see this grid of diamonds appear, and that's where they choose their categories, and they basically choose their top 5 categories. It's kind of unnecessary, but it just makes that moment feel bigger. I think that's what I like about the show. It's just trying to be more than it could be otherwise, because it feels like it needs to be a bigger deal because it's giving away a bigger prize. The moments in the show just feel kind of special to me, even though the rounds aren't that great. But all the rounds are presented in a sort of really wonderful way, with this sort of Terminator 2 sort of font appearing. I just really appreciate it for that. I just really like the way it's presented. I think it's one of the best presented game shows I've seen. And that's why I find myself constantly returning to it. And that's why it's my number 76. Also, did Bob Holness invent the iPad?
The first round we're going to have for you is the Lucky 7. There are 7 questions in all, and they're fed to me on this computer.
So, my number 75, and it's time to say goodbye to another great game show.
Hello, my little monkeys. I'm Otis the Aardvark from CWC in the 90s, and I'm hoping to take home a prize of Mrs. Anne Robinson.
My name is Roland Rat. I'm a multifaceted genius. I've flown in especially from Los Angeles to be here today, and quite honestly, I think I've made a big mistake.
I'm Nobby the Sheep, a co-host and sex star of Gimme 5 and Ghost Train Saturday morning hit shows. I'm here in the hopes that Anne will gimme £50,000.
Yes, I'm Jelly.
And I'm Jackson.
And we're here from CBeebies. Yes.
Go on, Jelly.
Oh, to show that little people
can be clever
too. Bank! 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 Bank!
Hey, Josh, sage and onion from Live and Cookie. what you
wig? What's your wig?
It's not a wig. It's not a wig.
Tell them. Just tell them. Be honest.
Wig.
Come out. Be honest about it. Moving on. Moving on.
Oh, hello there. Are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then I'll begin. I'm Roly Mo from the Roly Mo Show. I'm on the weakest link, so let's give it a go. Good luck, everyone.
I'm Zippy! Yes, and I'm George. Yeah, and we're gonna reach a pot of gold at the end of the weakest link rainbow. Oh, yes, we're going to try.
Hello, it's me. I'm Neb the Bear from Smile and Bear Behaving Badly. Love you, Anne. Frightened.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sue from the Sooty Show. And listen, I'm feisty, I'm petite and attractive, just like tonight's host. But I think perhaps I may have aged a little better in the last 40 years. Aha!
So as I start filming this, it started to rain outside, which seems suitable for my number 75, the original mean game show, The Weakest Link. Now this was a game show that totally changed the industry. Up until this point, all game shows were quite nice, sort of seen as a bit cheesy, sort of like fluffy, and then The Weakest Link came along and just totally redefined everything. And I think it's easy to forget how big a deal the show was when it first came out. Anne Robinson is the undoubted star of this show, and the fact that she's so honest and mean to the contestants really was something totally new, and was just so much fun to watch, and that's why people watch the show. They just like to see what Anne Robinson was going to say next. All the game mechanics in this are very strong, like the banking and who's getting the most questions wrong, and the sort of the voiceover saying who's the strongest and weakest link. It's all very clever. My personal taste is I'm not a massive fan of game shows that are just a sort of quiz question after quiz question after quiz question, which this is. So that's maybe why it's further down my list. But I totally respect its place in game show history, and that is why number 75 is The Weakest Link. Now prepare yourself, guys, because number 74 is a game show that so many people adore and love and would say is their favourite game show of all time. I like it too. Please consider that. It's my number 74. Here goes. So my number 74 is Nostalgia Central, it's Bullseye. Now I know a lot of you guys would have expected this to be higher on my list. I do really like Bullseye. My favourite thing about Bullseye is the different rounds. I love that prize board. In one, in two. I just love how that round's structured. I love, it just seems a very exciting thing to like have Bully's special prize as the bullseye. That's all very exciting. I really like the end game where they're trying to get 101. I really like that game where they're throwing darts and they're sort of choosing categories, and that's really exciting. I just love that rotating board. That's such a great set piece. And I really like that moment where they bring the contestants in and sort of say, right, you on the show, do you want to gamble or do you want to leave with what you've got? And if they don't get it, they pass it on to the next contestant who came second. And that's quite a revolutionary idea. I really like that about the show. I think what this holds this show back for me a little bit is just the hosting. Like, I know we love Jim Bowen, but he's not a great game show host. And also the contestants, sort of, I know we sort of get weird joy out of their hairstyles and their glasses and stuff, but they are quite uncharismatic, and because of that the questions are quite boring, so that's why it's kind of lower on my list, but I absolutely love all the things that make it higher on my list, and I'm sure I can't be the only person out there who Bully gave nightmares. It's on my list because it's a great symbol of UK game shows and I really like loads of the rounds, and that's why my number 74 is Bullseye.
19, 19. And treble 19.
Have a look at this. Have a look at this. It's an absolutely superb prize. Have a look at it. Watch it.
It's a bullseye fashion spree. A chance to splash out in style on a whole range of up-to-the-minute outfits from a leading fashion chain. Perhaps Dad would choose something elegantly informal, like this traditional blazer with casual check trousers and a trench-style raincoat. For Mum, how about this silk effect two-piece with a pleated skirt and a silk blouse in autumn colours? Our youngsters have designs on something colourful. Richard's gone for those jeans, which go down well in launderettes, together with a padded blouson and contrasting knitwear. While Colette's right up to date in this 60s style check tunic jacket with loose-fitting trousers. It's yours to mix and match, to pick and choose as you wish with a bullseye £2,000 fashion spree. Come on, come on.
Come on, John. Come on, up you go, Jack. Up you go. Up you go, John. There you bullies. There you bullies. There you are. There you are. Take that, Jack. Well done. We're delighted for you all. Our two lads tonight. There they are.
So my number 73 game show has got to be one of the cheesiest game shows that's ever been on TV, but I can't stop loving it.
Are you ready to go shopping? Step inside a very special supermarket. The only supermarket in the world that gives you money. £2,000 is waiting on our shelves to be won by some lucky person in this store. The aim of the game is to shop smarter and faster than the next person. And everything in this supermarket is up for grabs. Go on, fill your trolleys as high as you can because shopping has never been so much fun. Yes, there's prizes in store and much, much more when you play Dale's Supermarket Sweep.
My number 73 is Supermarket Sweep. Hooray! This is quite an interesting format for me because it's quite a Jekyll and Hyde format. I really, really like the sweep, and anything that involves going around the supermarket, they sort of do the mini sweep, don't they? And then there's kind of the end game. That stuff is so exciting, and that is just like... I can't imagine anyone not wanting to run around the supermarket and stick stuff in the trolley. It's just, that's just so much fun. It's such a fun thing to watch people do. And it's also fun to sort of watch how people's minds work, because it's like, why are you grabbing the DVDs? Why are you doing that? I'm not so much of a fan of the sort of food-based questions they used to get to this point, and the sort of cheesiness of that moment. It doesn't really work for me so much. I wish those rounds were a bit more interesting rather than just sort of doing hangman and sort of basic sort of ABC choices. I think they could have done more with that. But the end game is just, I mean, why people love this show. They love the idea of grabbing an inflatable. That's such a clever idea. And I like how that's all sort of mechanically put together. The fact that there's sort of, you can shop like normal, but there's all these bonuses. So if you find a tin can and the tin cans, then you can get a bonus for that. Or if you waste time sort of weighing the pick and mix, you can get sort of subtotal for that. That's really, really well structured. Dale is really good on the show. I actually prefer him on In It to Win It, weirdly, despite this is the show, obviously, that he's most famous for. I just think this game show is so fun. I think this game show is ripe for a revival, and that is why it's my number 73, Supermarket Sweep. So guys, it's been a little while since I've talked about a very modern game show, but here's one at number 72.
And your 15 seconds to steal their £7,500 starts now.
I have no idea. I'm going to go with you.
I'm pretty sure it's more up.
Further up?
Yeah.
I mean...
And in.
And in?
Yeah. No, down, there.
Like there?
Yeah.
And
I'm not too sure.
There we go. I have no idea, so...
I'm not really too sure.
I'm afraid I don't know.
So my number 72 is a game show that I think deserves more kudos, and that is 5 Gold Rings. Now, why do I like this show? For me, the reason I like this show is I just find the questions at the centre of the show so compelling, and it keeps me coming back. I just think, when I first heard about this idea of doing a sort of spot the ball game show, I was a little bit unsure how they were going to keep coming up with questions, and yet every time I watch it, they sort of do new takes on it, and I find those questions really fun to play and really fun to watch. And it's really fun to watch the players interact with the game. It's obvious it's in the studio, it's really hard to put that ring in the right place. I think the format's really interesting. I think it's really interesting how they went for something different with the two teams, and that one team will definitely win at the end. I don't necessarily actually love the format, but I like the fact it's doing something original. But for me, the big thing about the show is the star of the show, which is the questions. It's such a massive thing if you can have something that's totally unique to your show, and 5 gold rings definitely has that. I know I'm not going to get those questions anywhere else, so if I fancy that sort of spot the ball type question, I have to go to 5 gold rings, and that's really why I think it's still on and why it's so successful. And that's why my number 72 is 5 gold rings. So my number 71 is one I know is going to upset a lot of game show fans because it's not higher on my list, but it's a really great game show. Here's my number 71.
This is your first clue. 10 complete strangers must work as a team for a prize of up to £200,000. One of them is the mole, a traitor, an insider, a saboteur. The winner, the person who can answer the question. Who is the mole? The mole.
So my number 71 is the mole. So for anyone who hasn't seen this show, basically there's a group of people, they're almost on like a sort of a away day exercise type thing, and basically one of them is the mole, and they are trying to make sure that the group fail a series of team challenges, because by doing that they lower the prize fund on offer. But then the game turns as they try and work out who the mole is, and they're all individually surveyed, and whoever knows least about who the mole is removed every show. So this one is a really great game show. I think for me, I'm not as into it, as involved with it as some other people, and there's a very interesting reason for that. Is it was on Channel 5, and whilst Channel 5 was available in most of the country where I live, Channel 5 didn't come very, very late. So I sort of missed the boat a little bit on this. So by the time I sort of got into it, it was a little bit later down the line. I really, really like the games in this. I think they're really inventive. I think the thing that holds this back for me from being like right up there is I feel that sort of elimination mechanic is a little bit woolly. It's sort of like if you know who the mole is, you're going to stay in the game. If you don't know who it is, it basically becomes a crapshoot, in my opinion. You tell me if I'm wrong, internet, but that's how it feels to me. But because the games are so clever, and how the mole can manipulate them, and how they sort of separate people into different groups, and then they start to doubt different people, that's all so clever. And this game show's obviously had a massive impact on the game show industry. And that is why my number 71 is the mole. So that's it, guys. 10 more game shows down, 70 more to go. I'll see you next time when I go through 10 more. But for now, you are the weakest link. Goodbye!